Hello everyone, this is Abdurrahman Gilal, and in today's presentation I'll be trying to explain you about interfaces in Java. I'll go with defining interfaces and then multiple ways by which we can implement interfaces in Java programming language. So I'm using also Savage Absolute Java book. So I'm trying to give you certain how to say some examples from here and then certain examples in coding. So I'll try my best to explain gradually. So let's say we have learned in our previous presentation about abstract classes. So we learned that abstract classes are very much useful if we are trying to implement the design contracts. So what did I mean from design contract? On that day, for instance, I am having certain methods to be implemented by by the developers, or has to be implemented by any class that is extending the parent class. So that is usually not possible if we make a class which is a concrete class, which means it has all the methods and instances ready to use. So that will not be enforcing any, how to say, any, requirements over the subclasses to basically implement. For instance, what I mean from here is, let's say, okay, give me a second. Yeah, here. So let's say if I have a class that is, this is my class A and this is my class B. So let's say this is the parent class and this is a child class. So this is parent and this is child. So when I say I have certain methods that I want this class, child class, to implement. So here that's not possible if this class is concrete class. So what I mean from the concrete exam is a complete class, which is standalone enough for you to use into the child class. So we learned that if we have, let's say, if you have an abstract class, which is basically not a complete class. Let's say this is a C class and that is an abstract class. So what happens that if we are trying to use it as a parent class, and this is child once again, so what will happen is that if there are some methods, for example, A, B, C, and then you put nothing but just a keyword like abstract ABC, so this child cannot run until this has implemented this code. So that's what I was saying, design contract. So design contract, which means that a class, if they are trying to extend the parent from here, they have to implement certain things. Without that, they cannot use uh, you know, they can use the class. That's one of the beautiful things we learned. But it is once again the same thing that we can see that we have one parent class and then we have another child class, and then child class can only extend from one parent class. So it remains still the single inheritance, or I would say single implementation of the abstract class. So we have another way by which we can do that. That is called interfacing. So in Java, an interface is a reference type. If you remember in our initial presentations, we used to learn that there are two basic types of, you know, data in programming language, which means which one is a primitive and another one is a non-primitive. So the non-primitive, we were saying, always referring a word called reference type, which means that it's having certain things into it, but they are not, how to say, they are not primitive, which are not given by us from the developers of the language, for instance, Java language. So they are always there, and they have composition of something, and they are composite of certain mixture of the primitive and non-primitive, let's say. And then they work to facilitate us to, interact with the data, interact with the, methods, and by which we can manipulate the data, for instance. So primitive and non-primitive. So primitive or reference. So this is like a way by which we are basically trying to manipulate the behavior of a program or method based on the certain types of data that is given to them. So let's say interfaces are reference type. They are similar to classes because the reference class is also a reference type, but class is something that will help us to have an instance of it. So I'll be explaining you shortly that if we have interface or abstract classes, in both we cannot make the instance. So what I mean from the instance is give me a second. When I say instance, I'm saying that, for example, I have class let's say A, and we have certain definition into it. And if I want to use this class A in any other way, so usually I make this like class A, and I can put any definition or any name here, sorry, and then I can put the constructor of this class. So it makes the instance. This is the instance. So instance is a type by which we are actually, this is also considered to be referencing, but it is a way by which we are basically initializing values to it. So, or it is a way by which we are specifying certain values and properties to this particular object. So interfaces do not have any instance. We cannot create instance of it. You cannot create object of it. The same goes with the abstract classes. So we have similarity between abstract classes as well as interfaces. Therefore, Walter Savage started by saying that the interface is something like extreme case of abstraction. So in both of them, we have design context. In both of them, we have methods we have methods which are not complete, which do not have any body. For instance, in abstract classes, if I have a method called abstract, let's say void and a b c, and that's it. So I don't have, I put semicolon at the end. I do not have anything downwards like a body. The same thing gonna happen to the interfaces. Instead, only we do not choose the word or keyword called extra abstract. So they're looking like the same, but there are certain differences of them. So first of all, we should understand that the interfaces are the reference type, number one. They are used for us to enforce the design contracts. This is like one of the beautiful things, and there are other benefits of it, for instance, that by which we can also help to have a certain certain other properties of the programming concepts, such as multiple inheritance, that is not happening in Java. So I'll be explaining you a bit later about that based on Walter Savage definition. But based on this, I'm gonna say that if I have to compare between abstract classes and interfaces. So both of them are having different uses to them. For instance, I know that abstract classes are basically used when I have parent class, which means I can make make a use of it. I can assign certain how to say certain variables to them which can be assigned to the objects. But because I know that this is not going to happen in interfaces, it is quite slightly different from the classes. So the major difference between interfaces and abstract classes is that abstract classes do not support multiple inheritance. So when I was saying multiple inheritance, which means that parent one child has one parent. So one child may not have more than one parent. So it's a very simple thing. That's what we call multiple inheritance. But the other languages such as C++, kind of support multiple inheritance. So where you have two parent classes and the properties are coming downwards to the child. So what I mean from here, I just quickly draw for you that for instance, I have child. This is A and this is B, A class and B class. And both of them are basically trying to, you know, give a value to the child. So two parents are not possible in Java directly until if we are using certain tricks such as interfacing, right? So that's what I'm saying, that you do not have any interfacing, sorry, you do not have multiple inheritance if you follow abstract classes, because abstract classes once again remain the same thing. They are classes, so you can't implement multiple inheritance. But with the help of interfacing, you can do that. And methods in interfaces and in abstract classes can have incomplete, oh sorry, can have a complete abstraction, which means that, for instance, that interfaces do not have any definition to their methods or body to their methods. But in abstract classes, we may have certain methods which are complete, which means that they have the body to them. So even in fact, if I see this, Walter Savage is also claiming the same thing, that you know uh, that one class, or sorry, in abstract classes, give me a second, let me open it up. Yeah, this one. The class one simply mean all the listed, so no, it's not here. So I just saw it somewhere. Okay, so let's say that in interfaces, it contains method heading and constant definition only. Exactly, this is what I was trying to say. So it means that methods are only having heading and constant definition, which means there are something that is there like a variable that will be there only available. It contains no instance variable, so it means from here that the variable that will be used later on to the object. So because we do not define any object, so we do not have anything to it. So, and one of the big differences, okay, let me complete this. So in interfaces, you have all the definition, which are just having headings to them. My methods do not have any body, but in abstract classes, you may have bodies to certain methods. So, but there is a slight, development in Java 8 and onwards that you still, you may have certain methods which has certain definition into even abstracts in interfaces. What I mean, I will explain you a bit later that if you have default methods available in interfaces, they have the definition to them. If you have static methods in interfaces, they also have definitions. So this is slightly different than what we hear most often, but this is once again remains the same. Okay, so quickly to complete this difference between abstract classes and interfaces, that interfaces do not have constructor because they are not classes, so they do not have constructor. But yes, we have constructor if we are working on classes, or if it's abstract class or something. So abstract class has the constructor. So there are other benefits. I will be trying to explain you the differences side by side, but just to explain you quickly, as I just told you that interfaces, with the help of interfaces, we can go for multiple inheritance, and an interface serves a function similar to base class. So you still can consider this a base class, but it does not have any, you know, and definition to its all methods, and you have used this as a constructor. Sorry, as a how to say, as a design contracts. And once again, another thing is that when this is multiple inheritance, so as I just explained you with the abstract classes, you cannot have multiple parents to a child. But if you're working on interfaces, such as interface one, and you have another interface two. So you may have the definition, such as you have definitions, oh sorry, method declaration as you had, you know, in abstract classes, but with one child, you still can do the same. So you both can be, and they can come into the development or coding of this child class. That's one of the beautiful things that I always say, multiple inheritance. It gives you a beauty that with this you can still do the same thing that you cannot do with abstract classes. So this is one of the big differences that we just understood. And then okay, so this is, I have tried to explain you about that. And for instance, that if you have to develop any interface, I will be explaining you later about how to develop them. But just to give you a quick idea that in order to implement the interfaces, you should use the keyword called interfaces. Let me quickly show you. Okay, and then you have to call interfaces, and you may have this call definition. Sorry about that. Sorry. Okay, I better use my pen. Yep. Okay, so let's say here you have only definition, oh sorry, only heading, but you do not have anything. If you want to leave certain guidelines for the developers, so it is good for you that you should leave some comments which you cannot make sure during compile time or runtime whether they are implemented or not. So definitely programmer has to be careful about them. And you're gonna see that we may have more than one method, so we may have methods by which we can pass certain parameters to them. So it means that we can receive parameters like normal methods, but we cannot make object of this. So whatever class is calling the interfaces, they have to follow, how to say it, they have to pass certain methods to them, certain parameters to them. Okay, so This looks fine. And then definitely when we want to try to implement them, we have to use keyword called implements. So it's not the class, so we cannot extend. Abstract was a class, so we used to call extend keyword. So that's the difference. Okay, so this is just an example. If you can see, let me quickly help you to understand this code. And definitely we'll implement as well. So we saw the order, order, how to say, order interface previously. So this is just trying to implement, and they're trying to do the logic that it's want to compare. So let's say if this is null, so return false. So if this method the method proceeds is have receiving other objects object name other. So they are trying to compare that other is an instance of all the employee. So if this is the case, then make it not, so it returns false. If it's not the instance of other class, this is how they interpret. Otherwise, you calculate what they want to calculate, right? So the basic point here to understand that in order to implement, you have this kind of things that you use the keyword called implements, and then you keep the name of the interface. That's all. And if you have more than one interfaces, you can just put comma, and then you can say, let's say, order two, for instance. So this could be another, how to say, interface, which is called multiple inheritance, and that we were discussing about that. So let me quickly finish this theoretical understanding, and then I'll jump back to the development. So yeah, that's a simple thing to be understood. And yeah, abstract classes may implement one or more interfaces. So it means that if you have abstract classes which are still incomplete, you still bring into this some into implementation to them. So it's not necessary that you have to have only interfaces that has to be developed by the child class which are concrete. So even abstract classes can normally be using the interfaces. So that's just a quick understanding. So once you have interfaces and abstract together, so with this beauty, you may have certain methods which have definition from the abstract classes, and you still can take the description or heading of the methods from the interfaces. That's one of the very beautiful things. Okay, so just an example, let's say that you have a public abstract class, which is basically implementing order, and then you have certain methods, you know, coming here, and then they are also abstract, and then you can, how to say, implement them later on. I'll be explaining you when I try to develop them. So definitely once you have okay, this is one of the good things that you should be understanding, that if you have interfaces and you have another interface, so the parent interface can basically extend the child interface. So it's the same thing like we do in the classes. So what I mean from here is that if you have interface, let's say, let me draw it. If I have interface here, and this interface is called one, let's say, and it has certain methods such as A, B, C, and etc. And later you have another interface that is called interface two, and then you have certain methods like X, Y, Z in here, that is here. And you also want to bring them in here. So you want to redefine them, or it's easy way is that you use this like extends interface one, let's say interface one. That's it. So it's a way by which this all will be part of it. So whenever anybody which is extending, sorry, which is using interface two will have to implement ABC etc as well. So this is kind of the same thing that we are trying to bound them, tightly, so that the implementer of this interface two will also have the define. I will give you an example that there are a lot of times, for instance, we have animal, and not all the animal are used for guarding. So we can use the interface for guarding another, how to say, interface, and we can use animal and other. So for instance, if I have a dog, so a dog can have eating and sleeping as well as guarding, but cat cannot use this interface. So I just implement that one. So there are a lot of scenarios which we can help, which we can use to, implement or extend the interfaces as well. So I'll be explaining you a bit shortly. So yeah, I think that's all for theoretical understanding. So let me stop recording, and I resume it in shortly after opening up the compiler. Give me a second. Yeah, welcome back, guys. So I quickly coded and try to explain you what did I mean from here. So let's say I created an interface that's called animal interface. So I have kept certain methods such as public void animal sound, and then we have another method that's called public void sleep. So we do not have any implementation to it. So it's a very quick one. That's exactly the same like we have done in abstraction or in abstract classes. We have we also can have certain how to say certain variables if you want to keep, such as integer a is equals to 5 or something. So remember that this is not going to be any part of any instance, so it's going to be, you know, available for anybody who want to use it. So it is going to be the public or private. So you're going to see, like, if you're going to use it the private, so it has to be certain properties that are basically available to the interfaces. All right. So we have to ensure that we understand that these are not part of any instance. That's what I'm trying to say. So let's say if now I want to implement that one, so it's easy. It's that, for instance, pig is an animal, dog is also an animal. So if I say pig is an animal, so every animal has to have their own way of eating or making sound or, you know, sleeping. So this is just a quick one that, let's say, pig implements the animals. So animals is backward here. So you can see that, okay, animals is there. So we have animal sound, so you can make any sound, quack, 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 or wink, wink, wink. I don't know. So it's up to you. And then you have, you know, sleeping, then zoos, 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 or anything. Also, you may have another, you know, if you have another animal, you just have to, you know, implement the way that you like to implement, such as here you make it dog, and then you try to implement, okay, I have already got a dog somewhere else. So I said, let's say my puppy. Let's see if I don't have that. Okay, puppy is fine. You know, I have other codes available. That's why I was showing error. So puppy is there. So what kind of puppy is, you know, so what kind of sound that puppy makes? So it makes like wolf, wolf, anything that I wanted to write. So it's wolf, wolf, and how puppy sleeps is eek, eek, eek. So it's up to me that how I'm gonna make it, right? So let's say this is just my main class, which I'm basically going to call the main method. So here I make the instance of this big class, and I did not make any instance of you know, this interface. That's what I was trying to explain to you. So that pig, and then we have my pig.animal. So it is basically going to implement the, you know, code of interface, and then the sleep. So that's one of the very easy understanding. And the second thing I was trying to tell you about, having some default methods, which basically have certain, how to say, certain certain definition to that. For example, I'm gonna say default, and I'm gonna say, let's say, all element runs. So I'm gonna make it you know, run. So I, if I pass anything, it's up to me. For instance, I can pass some speed, such as I wanted to say, like, okay, speed. So I'm gonna say the variable will be integer, and that's how it will look like. Okay, so I'm gonna say system dot out dot println. So I'm gonna say animal, or I can pass a name. In fact, it's up to me. So I'm gonna say animal runs it the speed of, let's say, I'm gonna put here this s. I know that s is a parameters that I'll be passing. So you see, I did not implement this in interfaces. Sorry, in any other class, but anybody uses this animals, and I will be having this as already by default method. So let's say now, if I wanted to use that, so in order to use that, I have to pass certain values to it. So my pig dot, as soon as I hit the dot, it's coming to run, and then I have to pass a speed. Let's say I'm saying 20 or 15 miles per hour. So that's it. So let me run that, and you can see that here. There you go. So we have VV as a sound from here, and then sleep is coming ZZ, and then speed is that one. How about now I'm gonna make the sorry, puppy. Puppy, you know, I have a class called puppy. What's the spell of puppy? Okay, it's not the capital, so make it capital. Looks like a real class. So I'm gonna say puppy. I'm gonna make the puppy is a puppy. P is my variable name, and then I'm gonna say no constructors passing any value. And puppy has implemented their definition of calling the interface called animals. So now I'm gonna run this same thing here. So I'm gonna say p, sorry, okay, sound as well as p dot sleep, and then the last one I say p dot run. So run with the speed. So my puppy runs, let's say it's 20 miles per hour. So that's on it. So you're gonna have two different outcomes. So you see here, this is for my puppy, and this is for the pig. So this looks particularly awesome if we are having, you know, if you're having, different types of, classes implementing the same interfaces. But now, how about if I wanted to implement more than one, as I say, interfaces into one, how to say, in one class. So this is something first we have to create. Okay, so we know that, okay, so I have kind of animals which are, let's say, it's possible that are supposed to be bad and they are supposed not to be bad. So I'm gonna say like, okay, if I have, let's say, animals, so animals has these particular methods, which are every animal makes sound, every animal makes some, how to say, some sleep, but not every animal is a pet. So I'm gonna make a pet as an animal. Sorry, an interface. So I'm gonna make interface called pet. And I knew that I knew that even if it's a bad animal or non-bad animal, they'll still be extending, they'll still be, eating these two things. So I'm gonna say like they are extending, as I say that one interface can extend another one. So I'm gonna say it's extending the animals. So this way, these two are now part of the contract to this pet. Okay, as I just explained you, and then I'm gonna say void, let's say with pet you can play, but without pets, like if you're working with a lion or tiger, maybe some people are still doing that. I'm not gonna be like that. So it's gonna be like you cannot play with all the, let's say. So here I'm gonna say like instead of calling pet animals, I'm gonna call pets here. Okay. And that's good enough. So I'm okay. It's because I have to still implement this, you know. So if you click your just cursor here, you're gonna see like you have to implement the method, and that method is play method. So okay. So what you're gonna do is that you're gonna put anything here that you like to code for, and then you say, uh, I like to play with my, if you wanted to pass any value or some animal is playing, it's easy for me to say that instead of creating it a big one. Animal is playing. Okay, so that's it. So now if I wanted to implement this, it's basically implementing only one interface, but this is implementing interface that is extending. So this is the extended one. So this is one of the scenario, and just to make sure that you know that how to extend the interfaces. So interface can also be extended, right? So now let's say I'm gonna create another interface that's called a guarding interface. So not all the pets are guarding pets, right? So this is, for instance, here I'm gonna say interface like guard. So I know that there are some animal which can help us or protect us. So I'm saying guard is here is my interface. So now if this is the pet, this is a class called pig. Does pig basically help you to guarding? So no, it does not. So how about puppy? Does it help you? Yeah, it does. So basically I can just simply make a path here first. So as soon as I paid, I have to implement display as well. And also now I'm gonna say it's helping me to the guard. So now I have two methods to implement. One is the play method, another one is the guarding method. So you're gonna click here, and then you will have these two boxes, and you have to just click OK. So let's say play. So puppy playing, and then how about this one? System.out.print. Puppy is guarding me. Let's say just make it like this way. I know this is going to be helping me to just say p.guarding. So let's run it and see does it really guard me or no. So for sure we're gonna have an output called puppy is guarding me. So wonderful. So we're gonna quickly understand, I mean recap it. So I in this short presentation I try to tell you how to create interfaces. It's a very simple one that you have to just use a keyword called interface and then give the name to them. And we learned that we may have default, methods available in the interface where we can pass certain parameters to receive and then display them, in any way we like to, display. And there are certain methods which are having no body to them, which means they are still abstract in a form. So if you want to, use them, you have to implement them. We also learned that we can, extend the interfaces by just using the keyword called extending. So with this way, it's the same hierarchy like we have a child and you have a parrot. So if you're extending animals, so all the methods available in the animal will be part of the pet now. And then you may have your own specific methods available for this pet as a method. We also learned that if we have more than one, we learned that how to implement the methods by just simply using the keyword called implements, then we can use them. And then we also learned that how can we use more than one interfaces to implement in a one class. So we realized that we can use paid and guard, and then we can implement anything that we have got them there. And in order to use them, we should make the instance of the, I would say, instance of the a class that is basically implementing the interfaces, and then we can pass the values the way we normally pass to any kind of method. I think that's all for basic understanding about interfaces. I will be very happy to give you answer if you got any question. Thank you so much, guys. Take care.